Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I am the Crypto Crow, and today I'm not going to be talking specifically about crypto, and there's a reason why. I am going to be talking about metaverse projects and metaverse companies, because as we know, some of us anyway, Blackrock is getting into the metaverse business in the sense that they're not investing necessarily in cryptocurrencies or metaverse tokens, but rather equity holdings, equity investments into blockchain or metaverse based companies. And they're not the first, but when BlackRock gets into it, that tells me that a lot is going to start happening soon. Why is this a big deal? Well, for one, if you follow BlackRock and its relationship with the World Economic Forum, and you also pay attention to the things that Klaus Schwab, basically the leader, the grand poobah of the World Economic Forum, and basically the leftist group that Biden and a lot of, I mean, not just people on the left, but there are people on the right as well. But they all subscribe to this kind of this grand master plan on how we need to change the world for a better future for everyone. The whole "you'll own nothing and be happy" slogan that they'd put out a little while ago, a couple years ago, I think. And we can see a lot of what's happening in the world ultimately forcing society into the direction of this whole narrative, this whole ideology of the World Economic Forum. And I feel like there are a lot of elements to what happened during the pandemic where everybody was kind of forced to stay in their homes and not necessarily go out and about in the world, depending on where you lived. And just the sense of control that was instilled on everyone and how that worked out. And I don't really think, well, from society's perspective, I don't think it worked out very well. It set our children back in school years. It just had a lot of adverse effects. Small business took a major hit. Obviously, the economy took a major hit, and is still with the banks folding, and there's so many issues. And this is basically going to be like, what do they call this? Like a butterfly effect in a sense. But because of a lot of this stuff and the way I believe that the world is transforming, as well as the way technology is starting to come into play more and more in our daily lives. I mean, think about it. We carry a phone around everywhere we go, and everybody's locked into their phone. Like my daughter, she's 10, she plays Roblox all the time, loves Roblox, and it's a way for her. She plays with her friends from school, so they're always talking on the phone, and they're playing Roblox with each other on FaceTime. And we kind of monitor that, and we like to see what's going on, what are they talking about, that sort of thing. And it's always playful and fun, but the idea is even our kids are being acclimated to the use of this technology, and no longer are we having kids. Sometimes we have play dates where kids will, the parents will drop their kids off, or our daughter will go to their house, and they actually have physical play dates where they run around or they have pillow fights and that sort of thing. But everything is changing, and I believe that the metaverse across the board is going to be a significant player in the future of technology as we know it, and both entertainment as well as how we work, how we operate, how we develop, what we develop for. And ultimately, of course, the grand central scheme of a lot of it is blockchain, because with the CBDCs and the transfer of value from point A to point B, especially as it's going to be related to assets within metaverses and so forth and so on, and interoperability between multiple metaverses, and how cryptocurrencies are ultimately going to be utilized across the board. And, there's so much that's going to be happening. But initially, it starts with investing in the companies that are building this technology. And BlackRock has basically been creating an ETF related to the metaverse, and we're going to dive into this a little bit, as well as a couple of their competitors, and we're going to dive in a little bit into these. And these are traditional stocks that you can buy on NASDAQ basically right now. But we're going to read through a little bit of this, and then we're going to go into some stuff, and then I'm going to show you one of the metaverse projects that I believe is going to have one of the biggest some of the biggest potential for creating an actual metaverse world, unlike anything we've seen to date. But investment giant BlackRock, BLK, is offering an exchange traded fund, ETF, that will focus primarily on tech companies that are exposed to the metaverse, even as some institutional investors appear to have lost interest in the concept after its immense popularity during the recent bull run. Well, so this is the difference between those that are familiar with blockchain technology, Bitcoin cycle, Bitcoin being the grand poobah of crypto, and what happens with Bitcoin generally happens with the rest of the market. And if we're in a 4-year cycle, we got a 2-year bull, 2-year bear, and we just kind of ebb and flow through these cycles until the price action and adoption and everything grows so much that it's not playing as significant a role, or like the halving itself isn't playing a significant a role. But typically the phases of these markets are such that, in a bear market, people are building their applications, preparing for their future. They're generally launching or preparing to launch token sales of some sort of investment vehicle for the general public to get involved and help fund these ideas. Well, regulation is clamping down on a lot of that and has been over the last few years. So that has kind of slowed down. And then you had like the CME futures and all of that stuff launched back in 2017, 2018. And, they like to credit that as having brought Bitcoin's price down and taming the market. But that's a load of shit. We all know that because it was already time for it to taper down anyway. There's just a lot of different investment vehicles that have been put into place, and a lot of them like to take credit for a lot of different things. But ultimately, this is something that I believe will take a lot more. This is basically, in my opinion, a very, very, very good opportunity now, which is why I'm bringing it up, because I might actually transfer some things and maybe get into some of these now while they're low and while they're forming. But anyway, let's dive a little deeper. The fund, iShares Future Metaverse Tech and Communications, ETF, IVRS is the ticker, will invest in companies that are expected to contribute to the metaverse in areas including virtual platforms, social media, gaming, 3D software, digital assets, and virtual and augmented reality, according to its website. The top 5 companies that are included in the holdings are Meta Platforms, Apple, Nvidia, NetEase, I've never even heard of that one, and Roblox, go figure. Now, just off of that initial list, what do I know? Well, Meta's obviously having some significant issues because Meta, and basically all of these are staples that all of these other companies are into as well. Okay. And basically what they're doing, and the difference between this and going direct to like a Sandbox, a Cornucopias, or Decentraland, or whatever, is these are applications being built by teams directly on the blockchain as it relates to the blockchain they're being developed on. What these traditional ETFs are about are basically investing in companies that are dabbling or getting into the metaverse space, but they're going about it a different way. Quite frankly, I believe they're wasting a lot of money going about it the way they're going about it, because they are going about this technology as a means of changing the world in a way that they want them to change, not necessarily building the applications that empower the public to engage in these applications, have a great time, and draw an adoption in a very real way. Does that make sense? So, interest in building the metaverse, a concept first coined in Neil Stephenson's 1992 science fiction novel, Snow Crash, has expanded in recent years, with independent platforms like Decentraland and the Sandbox gaining considerable market share. Cornucopias will be soon coming. Trust me on that. However, that's my opinion. I should say it's my opinion. But yeah, it's probably going to kick some ass. However, general attitudes towards building the metaverse remain mixed, according to a recent survey from consulting firm KPMG. While over 90% of investors still believe the metaverse is the next phase of the internet, a large portion of investors remain cautious due to regulatory, privacy, and adoption concerns. Fair enough. While major companies like Microsoft and Meta demonstrated enthusiasm for the metaverse during the bull run, their funding of virtual social spaces has slowed amid an ongoing crypto winter. Microsoft was reported to have recently ended a project intended to encourage the use of the metaverse in industrial environments just 4 months after it was formed. Meanwhile, in 2022, Meta lost about $14 billion in its fledgling Facebook Reality Labs division, which comprised its augmented and virtual reality operations. That's because they're going about this all wrong. They're just going about this all wrong. I understand that there's going to be a growing and more concentrated effort to try and push the sheep into a very finite but expansive virtual realm, in the sense that, maybe they start with augmented reality and you're basically able to look around with some goggles and say, hey, there's a tomato, hey, chat GPT, what is that? Oh, that's a tomato. It's used for tomato sauce and all these. All right, cool. So it'll passively make you smarter and make you, rather than having to Google everything on your phone, you'll be able to wear a device that's tapped in through some API to like a chat GPT AI system, and ultimately control you to become a liberal. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's just funny because a lot of these AI systems are very left biased, which is very, very, very odd. But whatever. So let's go a little bit further and we'll dive in deeper. So still, the new ETF is likely positioning itself for the longer term potential of the technology, given the timing of the launch. The metaverse at this juncture, it is much more like the internet of the early 1990s or the smartphone of the early 2000s. We expect it to be going big and very likely change people's daily lives. Of course it is. The ETF has a net asset value of about $5 million and trades on the New York Stock Exchange. It will primarily focus on equities and won't invest in cryptocurrencies directly. However, the fund will invest in companies that facilitate the use of payment systems or digital assets in the metaverse, according to its prospectus. BlackRock's new ETF will be competing with the likes of Global X Metaverse ETF, Round Hill Ball Metaverse ETF, and Fidelity Metaverse ETF, all of which had declining values in the past year. And here's the thing, when I look at Apple, right? So all of these companies, they all own shares of the same companies, Apple being one. Apple needs some products, okay? All Apple's doing lately is just putting out a new version of old technology. They haven't really innovated or done anything since the new guy took over from Steve Jobs. I mean, really, I used to be an Apple support rep back in the day when I was a teenager, and I always loved Apple products. But nowadays, it just seems like they're trying to come up with more ways to force people to buy accessories. And so they say, okay, well, we're going to get rid of your headphone jack, and then we're going to make you use this one single jack for whatever you want, and that creates a bunch of problems. And then they have to sell it. Then they sell adapters. Oh, well, if you want that thing to do what the other phone did easily, well, now you have to buy an accessory, right? And they're trying to drive up sales because there's a lack of innovation at this point. And I like Apple products for their ease of use. I really don't like my Android stuff that much. I don't even like using my Android phone very much. It just feels wonky somehow. It feels bad. But Apple needs products. And when you take into account what has been going on with Apple and censorship in China and all of that, it's like, all of these companies that are quote unquote going woke, they're being funded and supported by companies like BlackRock and a lot of these other major, because here's the thing, there's this whole ESG element to all of this, right? And this environmental friendly kind of metric system associated with companies and how green they are, how they give back to the world, how they give back to nature, how they reduce carbons and all of these things. And I'm not even necessarily saying that that's a terrible thing, but to me, it reads like a control mechanism for basically supporting companies that support an overall agenda, even the agenda that's not related to this ESG stuff. It basically says they're towing the line. Let's give them some money. And I feel like they use this ESG as kind of a metric for discovering and figuring out what major companies are on board to play ball and which ones aren't. And I also believe that there's an element of ESG as it relates to like a social credit score that may very well be happening. And so when you put all of this stuff together and you look at the companies that companies like BlackRock are investing in, I'm pretty sure they will all have very strong ESG scores. That's my guess. And it doesn't necessarily matter what the company does, or, you know, like if it doesn't matter if they have 8-year-olds making 2 cents an hour creating their products. That's not, ESG doesn't care about that. They care about other stuff. Okay. And so for Apple, Apple needs a better product. Apple needs to innovate, and it needs to get back into like putting their thinking caps on and figuring out how to increase the use of the phone, not just take things away and then bring them back to sell each new model every year. Okay. And that's where they're at. So I'm kind of like, I don't really care that much about Apple, because to me, it's like, I don't know, it's getting old in the sense that, you know, can you teach an old dog new tricks? Well, I don't know, because I haven't really seen many. Then you have companies like NVIDIA, which NVIDIA really blew up during like 2017, 2018, and it's been kind of ebbing and flowing alongside the crypto market. Why? Because anybody that was trying to mine Ethereum or ERC20 based tokens, well, you needed to buy like 6 different NVIDIA graphics cards, or not. They didn't have to be NVIDIA cards. It could have been others. But NVIDIA was on back order for a lot of stuff. And anytime they would release a new graphics card with really good hashing algorithm stuff, they would just fly off the shelves and be gone. People would buy them in droves and then try and flip them at a profit on eBay and stuff like that. And so it made it really difficult for even the regular gamers to buy a really good graphics card, because all of the miners were sucking them up and then either flipping them at a profit, or they were building these really expensive Ethereum based mining rigs out of them. I've done it. I built 2 of them, and I did a whole video from start to finish on how I built one. And that's all fine and dandy. But now that Ethereum has gone proof of stake, now it's a question of, well, how much do people really want to spend to mine up a lot of these ERC20 based altcoins that are still going like the proof of work model? You know what I mean? And so it left a lot of technology in the dust, in my opinion. But NVIDIA is also going to be providing a lot of the graphic processing of these meta worlds, these metaverses all over the place. But the thing too is, because they're not necessarily investing directly into blockchain-based companies, they're also kind of, it seems to be overlooking the P2P file sharing protocols out there, like Siacoin, Filecoin, a lot of these others that can basically help facilitate a lot of this data storage. It's only going to continue to grow with a proper metaverse, right? There are so many other different elements to establishing a growing and expansive metaverse. I don't necessarily see any of these companies doing that. And so while I'm interested in a lot of this stuff, because I know that the technology is going somewhere, here's what I believe to be more likely than anything. These companies don't have to innovate on the metaverse front. Why? Because there are enough companies like Sandbox, Cornucopias, Decentraland, and I'm sure many others that I don't even talk about or know about yet. Feel free to let me know in the comments below which of those have really grabbed your attention, and I'll take a look. But these companies can build these metaverses and then sell them to these major corporations that want to buy them and start continuing to expand on them or grow them, utilizing their technology and start, you know, integrating their technology into these metaverses and so forth and so on. Why put in all this money in R&D like Meta has, instead of just letting companies that this is their bread and butter, their whole reason to exist? Let them build the technology. Study that technology, watch its growth. Does the community adopt it? Does it build a growing community? Is it like, what answers does this technology provide out there? And like, do we want to buy it? Is it worth buying? I think that's going to be more likely what we see probably post 2025. I'm going to be willing to guess that as some of these metaverse applications or these kind of sandbox games and things like that, as they continue to grow, I anticipate them getting bought out by some of these major companies like Nvidia, Apple, so forth and so on. So yeah, that's what I expect to see. Now, this is the prospectus for BlackRock's ETF. And, it goes into some detail. This isn't very long. It's 16 pages. I need to get down towards the bottom. Let me get down to the bottom here. And it just kind of goes over the risks and, how, the valuation is based off of your withdrawal, not, basically what your holdings are. Your taxing happens at the time of withdrawal. So like if you buy some of this ETF and then you sell it 3 years from now, your taxation and your earning is based on the date of your withdrawal, not necessarily what it was at any time in between, all that kind of fun stuff. And there's information on the team portfolio managers. They're the names of all the team players of all of this. BlackRock Fund Advisor, that's the main advisor. And at some point, I thought, maybe I missed it. Oh, BlackRock. Go paperless, BESG. I'm all about paperless, so is what it is. Well, there was some other information in here, but ultimately, a lot of the stuff that they're getting into, and it talks about COVID and things. And I find it very, very interesting how they love to comment on COVID and things like that when it comes to the metaverse. Like, here's an alternative. If you get locked down again, it's not saying that in here, obviously, but it is basically drawing some parallels. Morningstar. A Morningstar committee reviews the assigned scores to help ensure internal consistency. What is Morningstar? Morningstar Global Markets, ex-India. To construct the underlying index, the index provider begins with the Morningstar. Do you guys know, like, Morningstar? That's really weird. Interesting that nothing comes up but financial stuff. Yeah, I found that kind of weird. Morningstar. Yeah, I guess I'll leave that alone. Let me look at images real quick and see if anything comes up. No, it's all this company. Interesting. You guys know what I'm getting at, though. All right. Well, anyway, that's interesting. I never saw that before. I haven't read through this completely. But anyway, metaverse platforms technology. So what are some of the competitors? So Fidelity I actually like, because Fidelity was one of the first groups out there that was getting into crypto and basically showed support for crypto and was very much an early adopter against everyone else. While everyone out there was saying, don't touch crypto, crypto's bad, blah, 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 blah. Fidelity was saying, no, we think crypto's going somewhere and we want our investors to be able to have that exposure to it. So in the Fidelity Metaverse ETF, currently trading at 2208, up 1.51%. And it breaks down. There's more information here. It goes into just all sorts of different stuff. Portfolio composition, Meta Platforms Inc., Nvidia, Tencent Holdings, Apple Inc., Alphabet Inc. Class A, NetEase, Naver Corp, and there's more information here. So there's 62. There's 61 long holdings and then one short, apparently. And then this breaks down the top 10. But the thing of it is, Metaverse is having a lot of issues. So Meta is laying off 10,000 more employees in a series of cuts. They're cutting a lot. And here's the thing. I think it's because they just went about it the wrong way. And on top of that, there's another little layer to this. What do they say about inflation? One of the best ways to curb inflation is unemployment, because the less people that have jobs, the less people there are out there spending a lot of unnecessary money. And they basically offset a lot of that stuff with major corporate layoffs. So some people think like, oh, Twitter was bought by Elon and then he goes and fires everybody, right? No. All these companies are doing that. any of these companies that have any kind of role or understanding about inflation or what the grand narrative is, what the grand plan is, they're all playing a role in it. I honestly don't believe it matters that Elon Musk bought Twitter and then fired a whole bunch of people. Was it a lot of waste that was there prior to him taking control and realizing a lot of these people just didn't do very much and were making insane amounts of money for doing very little? I don't think it would have mattered, because I just think that's what a lot of these companies have been doing. Google, YouTube, Facebook, all these major tech companies have been laying off tens of thousands of people. I don't think it was just because Elon bought Twitter and said, oh, you're a waste, it's time for you to go. I think it would have happened regardless of him buying it out. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong on that. But then Global X is another one, and then they break down some of their information. The inception date's 2022. Total expense ratio 0.50, net assets of only 2 million. I mean, this is small. And so listen, there's opportunity here to get in at what I would still believe to be pretty much the ground floor. And this group breaks down all of their holdings in all of these different companies. The thing of it is these are like Cisco Systems. I mean, these are Qualcomm, Adobe. These are investments in companies that will play some role, some way, shape, or form in metaverse technology. But you could do this as maybe a traditional part of your portfolio if you're looking to diversify. And I am not a financial advisor. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So don't listen to me for shit. I'm just some old guy on the YouTube trying to get some algorithmic love. Okay? How can I spell it out that way for you? But I am always right sometimes. So I guess the weight of all of that just depends on how long you've been following me and how much you trust my opinion. But this is all very much just opinion. But you know, a lot of these companies, yeah, they're likely to do well in a metaverse market when the market starts to tick up and start taking off again. And all of these companies may very well play a role in a lot of this technology. But I think they're also, to some degree, are they guessing? I don't know. What does Square Enix have anything to do with metaverse? Some of these are just gaming companies, Ubisoft. And that's okay. But you know what that tells me is it's not just about metaverse, it's about entertainment. And it's not only that, it's about entertainment that you can receive in a little room all by yourself. So take that as you will. Now, me personally, I like to go direct to the source. So I like Cornucopias. I'm pretty sure the last time I talked about Cornucopias, it was at a penny. And now it's up to 3 cents. And once they start kicking off with some centralized exchange listings, I see the price of this going higher. So you can still get it on different, I think there's a couple different platforms you can get it on. Let me see, markets. So Pancake Swap, Bilaxy, and I think Min Swap, you can also get it. But you do have to be careful because like Bilaxy, this is like some of these are Binance tokens. So there's two versions of the COPI token. There's the Binance and the Cardano version. And you'll be able to transfer one for the other, but you have to make sure that that's what you're doing. So one, you're going to end up having to buy with Binance token. The other, you can buy with Cardano and so forth. But currently it's trading at an average of 3 cents, and it is going to be different depending on what platform you're using to get it. And there are more platforms that make it available than are shown here. I don't know why they don't update that. But whenever COPI tokens hit in a centralized exchange, volume is going to definitely be going up, because I know personally there are a lot of people waiting to buy COPI tokens, but they don't want to, or they don't know how to, even though I've shown them. People just are sketchy about DEXs, but it's up 19% in the last 24 hours just in volume alone. So yeah, I mean, audits by hacking, and I think they're always kind of doing different audits and things to make sure things are secure. But on a grand scale though, you can also look, these are all metaverse tokens by market cap. So if you're looking into getting into other metaverse applications like Axie Infinity, they call this a metaverse token, but it's really not a metaverse. It's just a game, and it's a game that creates a yield. You spend like hundreds of dollars on these little animals, and you can fight them kind of like Pokemon, and then you can hatch them together to create new versions and then people sell them. And it's cute, right? It's a cute concept. It's a very cute idea. I'm actually looking at something semi-similar with my Wargrim game on Cardano, because I would really love to set up my game to where instead of just having, here's your model that you use, here's all of its weapons and things, and here's the points allocated, I'd almost rather have it where you can buy a sword, you can buy a skill, you can buy this as NFTs and merge them all together to create the unit you want. Let me know what you guys think of that, because it's going to be a lot of work. But personally, for me, especially for list building and very intricate list building, I don't think there's anything like it out there. And I think that would be really, really, really insane. I personally would eat that up, but I don't know. I'm very much about the kind of the micro level, not necessarily min-maxing, but I really like the idea of doing that in a tabletop, like a digital tabletop game where I plan on crushing all your faces. So anyway, but a lot of these applications, a lot of these cryptocurrencies are directly related to metaverse tech. And you don't see any of those on the traditional lists of these ETFs. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. You've got Round Hill Ball Metaverse ETF. This is another one. There's only a few of them, and there's a lot of information. You can look these up, and I don't think any of them are astronomically priced. I mean, you can get these now for like $20, I think, and a lot of this one's 22. I'm not sure what iShares is yet. I haven't pulled that up. But listen, folks, I mean, this is what's happening. And when BlackRock basically comes out and gives their stamp of approval and says, you know what, this is a good idea, we like that, we're going to do it too. But all of these down here, these are all the different options you have. So do your due diligence, do your own homework. Maybe if you want to, if you believe that metaverse technology is really going to be going somewhere, especially between now and 2030, which I believe it is, hint, hint, it might be a really good opportunity for you to get in while the markets are down and maybe average in some of this stuff over time, because very, very much likely by 2025, this is all going to go up. And by 2030, it's probably going to be astronomical. And the thing of it is the one caveat to this, or the one safety thing, is that these ETFs aren't going to be affected nearly as much by crypto regulation that may very well be coming down the pipe as well. And because of that, this is like equity investment in an ETF, whereas going directly into the cryptocurrency, while it could and very well likely will be very much more fruitful for the speculative investor, it's also likely going to be more volatile and more risky, depending on where you put your money. Because some of these projects may not be around by 2025. Many of them, I'm sure, won't be around by 2030. So it's really it's a thing. You gotta really do your own research, and you gotta pay attention to where they're building. How are they continuing? Are they continuing to reach new milestones? Are they continuing to build their community? What's the sentiment around each of these projects over the last 30 days, 90 days, year, 2 years, so forth? You have to pay attention to those metrics to make sure that it's a train moving forward, not something that's kind of hanging out collecting algae in the pond. So until next time, guys, grow your coins. I'll see you again very soon. Thank you for joining me.